Firstly, I always say like selling is serving, which I think really helps people, but also bring the human back. Just talk to another human, share it, take away this awkwardness.
So I'm going to ask the question that I'm sure the beautiful woman listening to this is thinking. How do you do your conversations?
I love this. I'm so excited already.
Welcome back to Wildly Empowered Women. Today I have Adriana Andelkovic with me.
What if we just let people be people? Don't take it so personally. Keep moving, keep going.
She is an intuitive mindset and business coach. She's very passionate about energetics and strategy.
A follow-up is only when you're like, really need this sale. And I get it. You might actually need that sale. I've been there and I understand. But
if you are an online business owner, this is the podcast episode for you.
I have got this game sorted.
Welcome back to Wildly Empowered Women. Today I have Adriana Andelkovic. I love that name. It is a bit of a tongue twister and we were just talking before we started recording, a very sexy name to pronounce. So go and follow her on Instagram. Her Instagram is in the show notes. And today we're going to be talking about her passion for energetics and strategy for real business results. So she is an intuitive mindset and business coach with a lot of value to give. And this whole podcast came about from just looking at some of the, the conversations and the, like content that you have, Adriana, on your Instagram already, and just being like, you know what, this needs to be a podcast. This actually needs to be a conversation that we have to give some value around this, because I think, a lot of people get very caught up or nervous about having conversations in their DMs. So before we get into the juice of that topic, would love to just hear a bit more about your story. So how did you actually become a business coach?
I love this. I'm so excited already. So I've been doing this. It feels weird because it feels like it's been 2 minutes, but all of a sudden I'm like an adult who's been doing this for years and years. So I've run a business for 10 years now, different businesses, and I kind of transitioned out of the product-based industry, which I don't know if you know, I was in before this, and I owned a business in the fashion world. And then I was like, there's something else going on here. There's something else I want to do. And then I kind of moved away from that into the service-based world. And what's really interesting is it started off as intuitive readings, energy work, all of that fun stuff in that space, like psychic readings, all of that. And I was like, it's not just this though. And that kind of wasn't satisfying yet. Then I moved away from that into more like life coaching and trauma work. I was like, this isn't it either. Then I moved into, and this is a good reminder for everyone, that try shit on and it changes, it evolves. And then I did just business coaching, and I loved that. And that was probably the closest I felt I had gotten. But then I was like, there's more here. Like there's a reason people start and then stop. There is a reason people have self-doubt. There is a reason people, can't commit or can't stay consistent. And more I realized it was our wounds underneath, our traumas, our belief systems. And then I really started to combine the two worlds together. So the energetic work I was doing, the psychic work, the wounds, the trauma, and I mixed that with strategy, with understanding structures and systems that make a business actually not just start, but scale. And then I realized I'd found the thing. I'd landed in the thing. And here we are, what I do now.
I love that. And so who are the type of people that are typically attracted to work with you?
I find that this is really interesting. I was having this conversation with a friend who's in like the course space in the business world. And she was talking about the type of clients she gets. And I was explaining mine. And we realized that the clients I was really attracting were like really soul-based businesses, like healers, kinesiologists, life coach, hypno, mindset coaches, all of those things, because it was like they are really attracted to bringing both worlds together. But a lot of the time they are still really struggling with that strategic piece of like, Instagram takes work. business takes work. Let's not shy away from this bit. Let's go do the things. And that seems to be that person that's like, I know I need to go get some stuff done. And that's my favorite people because it does take work.
Absolutely. And Instagram is the place that feels so good for so many of us. And again, this is like sort of where this conversation came up. What is it that you help people with in Instagram? Like, what are they coming to you for in the first place?
Yeah, all of it. Is that a good answer? So what I always say to people is I'm always like, you really got to remember that you're coming for all of it. Like you're coming for not just how to show up, but show up consistently, show up with a brand and refine that brand as you go. I think a lot of people try and have the brand perfect from the beginning, but mine wasn't, and we were reflecting on the growth of my brand, how much it's changed. Like if you scroll back, it has changed, and really helping them refine that over time. So not getting it perfect at the start. Then there's the strategic pieces of how to attract clients, like how to have conversations in the DM, which was the post that kind of brought us into this conversation, how to post really good stories that get people looking and buying, how to make good content. So I call it an ecosystem. So it's everything coming together as an ecosystem. And it's that reminder that it's not just one thing. It's not the DM on its own, and it's not the story on its own. It's the way stories, DMs, content, your energy, all that mixes together.
Yep. I love that. It is all of it. And it's like, if you're going to commit, know that it needs to all be part of your strategy as well. And I love your point around allow yourself to evolve. Like I always say that with personal branding as well, is like doesn't need to be perfect. You don't have to have it all figured out, but you just need to actually take the first step, because how are you going to evolve or get more clarity on what your brand is if you don't actually create content and start conversations and, have something out there as your brand? And then of course it's going to evolve, because if you're building a personal brand, you're a person, right? So you're going to have a life, you're going to evolve, you're going to grow, you're going to constantly change and up level. And that's the beautiful thing about having a personal brand, is you're taking people on the journey with you, witnessing that.
Yeah, and I think the real struggle there for people is like allowing yourself to evolve in front of people, like allowing them to see all the iterations of you.
Yeah, which gives them permission as well to do the same and not have it all worked out first before they, actually jump on and start doing something online. So yeah, I love that. Yeah. So let's talk conversations. Why do you feel they're so important, specifically conversations in DMs on Instagram? Why do you feel they're so important?
So a really, really funny story is that last year my business blew up. It was like amazing. I had hit my biggest month and I was like, yes, this is epic. It was almost $40,000 in like 28 days or something. And I was like, awesome. And then I had another big month, and then I had another big month, and I was like, I have got this game sorted. And I think, we get a bit ahead of ourselves when this happens, and then we can become a little bit complacent. I learned this lesson the hard way, so hopefully others can learn it the easy way. And then I was like, you know what? I don't really want to be DMing anymore. You know what? I'm just going to go to the other methods, and I'm going to, what everyone's talking about, I'm just going to share, and everyone's going to come to me and all the things are going to happen. And whilst that totally is possible, and it's absolutely happening for some people, it put my business in a really big decline because I stopped doing what was working for me. And I think we stopped doing what's working for us too soon. And then we have to pay the price of that. And I did. And then the following few months, I was like, okay, I can see here that conversations were actually a really integral part of what grew my business. How can I do them in a way that feels really, really good to me and keep teaching it? So I added it back in, and I believe most strategies take like 30 to 90 days. I would say closer to the 90-day mark, so 3 months, to really like take on their life again. And that was the case for me. So within 3 months, it kind of took on its life force again, and I started seeing the results. And I looked and I stopped and I said, okay, what was I doing in the down months? And I did that for 3 months. What was I doing when it went back up in those 3 months? And I kept everything I was doing, I just added conversations. And to me, that's just not that hard to add in, on top of all the other beautiful things we get to do, a point of contact with your audience, a point of connection, a point of seeing, can I serve you? Can't I serve you? Do you want to become friends? Do you want to go on a podcast together? There's so much room for opportunity.
I love that. So I'm going to ask the question that I'm sure the beautiful woman listening to this is thinking. How do you do your conversations? Like, are they reactive? Are they proactive? What is it that you do that feels so good being in the DMs?
I feel like something I teach and that I love, and like this is like a very literal, I loved like little bits people can be like, I can go do that today, is what I call warm DMing. So it's not like someone's totally cold, never heard of me before, and I'm like, hi, want to buy my thing? No. It's like, I feel like that's what some people think it is. And instead, the version that I really love is, and why it feels so good, is people who are already in my audience. So they follow me, they probably somewhat like me. Ideally, they're also interacting with content, but even if they're not, that's okay too. And actually getting to know them. So putting out that question of like, how are things going for you? What is it that you do? Whatever feels relevant to that person, to the niche, to where I'm at. And then allowing them to share like, yeah, like this is amazing, or yeah, it's not amazing, or like we end up just connecting and being like, oh, let's like love on each other's content more. I want you more in my feed. I vibe with you, and being like, that's okay. But taking the pressure off it having to be like, oh, well, if I message you, it's because I want just a sale from you. It's so much more than that. And that's what really helps me. And so people that are already following me, people who are ideally interacting and watching along, people who I'm following up, who I haven't touched base with in a while, and actually bothering to understand where they're at or they need, and seeing how we can serve each other.
I think that's really key what you've just said there about how you can actually serve them and the problem that they have that you could help to fix, because this is where I feel people don't want to DM because they feel like it'll feel sleazy or salesy or like not very fun, is if they're seeing it as like, oh yeah, just go and DM people and like ask if they want to buy your products. Like, absolutely not. If you're speaking to someone, if you were speaking to a friend and a friend was like, I'm looking for, you know, I've had a bit of a breakout, I really want to go and have a really nice facial, and you knew a facial to recommend, you would help them with it, right? So it's like, it's if it comes up in the conversation around a problem or, you know, like something that they need and you can recommend them, whether it's you or not, like whether it's you as the answer or the product or service that you're selling or potentially something else. Like, God, if I was an affiliate for Abraham Hicks, my God, I'd be a millionaire. The amount of people I send to Abraham Hicks as a like, you know what the answer is? It's listening to Abraham Hicks, honestly. So I think, yeah, what you've shared is such a beautiful point around, you know, we're not saying go out there and like just DM people sort of trying to get a sale. It's DM from a place of like, yeah, like true connection and uncovering if there is a need that you can fulfill for them or if there's a problem that you could potentially solve for them.
And in that, I feel like it's also then playing the long-term game. I was showing my clients some of the conversations I've been having recently with people's names blacked out and all that fun stuff. And I said to them, we played like this game in each conversation. I said, tell me what you notice. And I had to type in the chat box what they noticed. It was really, really fun, actually. I'm such a nerd with these things. It was the best. And then the overarching comment they said they realized in each conversation was that I was playing the long game, was that I wasn't rushing anyone, that I was honestly just like, oh, cool. Sounds like what could be really useful for you is my free challenge. Do you want me to send you the link? How'd you go with the free challenge? Sounds like what could be really useful for you. Just jump on a call and let's see if we're a good fit. Oh, let's jump on a call. And then there was another example where it was just like, oh, you know what? This is so cool to connect. Thanks for being here. Bye.
Love that. Yeah. It's the like being a human, right? Isn't it? It's just like if you were chatting to someone at a park or, you know, in a pub or whatever, you've just met them in a social setting, you wouldn't be weird. You know, it's like you wouldn't be weird and sleazy and or you know, like say things that feel a bit awkward and not yourself. So I think yeah, that's another big key, is like just being yourself in conversations in DMs as well. Okay, another question I want to ask, because I know that a lot of people will be wondering about this too, is what about follow-ups? How can you follow up with someone who has asked for information on potentially your business or what it is that you sell or serve with? How can you follow up in a way that feels really good?
Before we go on, I want to ask you a super powerful question. What would it mean to you to make decisions based on your soul rather than your bank balance? Freedom to me means having true autonomy and choice in your life to live based off your values and soul's desires, rather than what you can purely afford for you and your family or what your job requires of you. This is why I've been empowering women for the past almost 5 years to earn more with pleasure, earning your true worth without the insane hustle and with actually having choice in your life. It is so much more about how you earn rather than what you earn. If you'd like to learn more about how I mentor women to earn a time-leveraged income online, selling conscious, health-based products and learning the skills of personal branding and attraction marketing, both very sexy skills to have, then click on the link in the show notes or DM me the word info on Instagram so we can have a proper chat. I love having one-on-one convos with you savvy queens and showing you how this kind of income and our community can help you truly live wildly empowered. Big love, back to the episode.
My favorite thing with follow-ups is to be sure you are in a place of just pleasure and abundance and strength and not neediness. A follow-up is only yuck when you're like, really need this sale. And I get it. You might actually need that sale. I've been there and I understand. But if you can find and dig for that place within you, that's like, I'm solid. I am powerful. But I am going to follow up because the person's dog might have started barking, got distracted. The person's baby might have cried. Life happens, and I get it. It happens to me too. So how can we give that person so much space for their human that anything could have happened for them, not make it personal, not make it so much about us, and just be like, hey, how'd you go with that? Did you have any questions? How did that land with you? Hey, beautiful. I was just checking in to see how that landed with you. Hey, beautiful. I was just following up. Did you have any questions? And actually saying it how you would say it. And, not being passive and not being needy and not over committing to them. Be like, did you need something? Like, did you need me? Da, 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 da. It's actually peeling it back, I feel, and keeping it really simple in that response of how you're responding.
That's awesome on follow-up because that's such a big part of conversations. So if we look at you've had a little conversation with someone, you're building rapport, you're building a relationship, potentially in the conversation comes up a opportunity for you to serve them, with offering them a solution to a potential problem. Maybe you followed up with them if they've asked for information. And then what? Do you sell in your DMs or do you take it to a phone call, or what's the sort of end game here?
Yeah, I trialed selling in my DMs and it just didn't work for me. It didn't land. I don't know whether it's a me thing or where my audience is at, how well established they are. I don't know yet. But I really believe that as a buyer myself, I love jumping on a call. I love making it really informed decisions. So the chances are, so does my audience. So I actually brought back my sales calls. And so the end game is one of two things. One would be to pass them on to a workshop or something that's free that they need to download. So I'm collecting their email. So a lot of my combos will end at that place because then they're tapped into my world and to my energy and to me and how I teach. And they're getting a sense of, oh my gosh, I love how she teaches, or she's a lot for me and I'm good. I'm like, this isn't for me, and that's perfect. So we're kind of establishing that early, and then they'll go on a list, and then I'll follow them up within 3 to 7 days, let's say, for example, and see how they landed with all of that. The second option is jumping on a call. And that one, I'll be really honest, and I'll just say, so the best thing to do from here is jump on a call and we can just talk about some options and how that suits you. And I find that transition is really easy because then they're like, oh, that actually is really helpful. And that is the best thing I could do. So I'm really mindful of that language that I'm using, invite them on the call and then see where we go from there, and encouraging them to book that call while they're in that moment.
Cool. And I have to ask, what are the biggest mistakes you see people make when it comes to conversations?
So many little things, I think the mistakes are these like little intricate things we're doing. One is that I was actually just working through this with a client, is like taking stuff really personally. She was like, oh, I feel like, or our ego kind of getting in the way. I feel like that person didn't like me, or they thought they were better than me. And I'm like, what if we just let people be people? Don't take it so personally. Keep moving, keep going. And then the other part is I feel like really noticing too much if no one's replying. And I'm not saying don't look at your stats, but look at it when you're feeling strong, but B, when you're feeling like resourceful, which I guess is like feeling strong, but also when you're looking at it to be like, cool, does my opening message make sense? Or did it actually not really make sense? And if not, can I go back and change that? The other thing I think is asking questions that don't really go anywhere, like, how's the weather? And, where do you live? It's like, no, keep it niche specific, keep it to your message, to what you're passionate about doing and talking about, and follow some type of, I use the word script very loosely, but follow some type of flow so you know where to take the combo and you don't just get lost in what I call the friend zone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And the friend zone is so important to build rapport, but I agree with you. Like, if you are going to actually offer some help to that person, like, don't just fart around the subjects, right? Like, actually offer it. Like, if someone, and again, it's like just being human, right? If you and I were just talking as friends and you said that there was a problem happening in your life, or you were looking like for a place to live or something in a specific area, and I had heard of a friend who wanted to Airbnb their house out or something, as if I'm going to keep that information to myself. Like, if you actually, the more you humanize it, the less awkward it is.
Yeah, that's a big thing I taught the girls in my group recently. I was saying, firstly, I always say like selling is serving, which I think really helps people, but also that like bring the human back, like just talk to another human, share it, take away this like awkwardness.
Yeah, absolutely. And so in terms of keeping the conversation flowing, so, like asking questions is a big one that you've mentioned, so that they actually have something to answer, and then following up. Is there anything else in terms of like timelines or how you keep the conversation flowing so that you're, actually getting it to the next stage in the conversation?
Yeah, I kind of just follow that real basic framework, that we all know pretty well, of like opening it, understanding their focus, understanding their struggle, closing it. And I find that if I follow that little funnel, I call it like you're narrowing down. Your first question's broad, then it's less broad, then it's not very broad. And I think that helps just be like, okay, can I serve this person when I follow that little framework? And if they're not my ideal client, somewhere in question 1, 2, or 3, it'll be really obvious. Or it'll be obvious that they're just like, yeah, it's good. No, nothing. You're like, okay, I'm going to move on now. And that's okay too. But following that little framework, and I've been doing this for years, and still I'll be in the DMs and I'll go through my brain. I'll be like, cool, I know the broad answer. Okay, I know what they want to focus on. How could I ask what they're struggling on? Okay, now I know that. Now would it make sense to invite? And I find that little system, and I'm not too fussed on how long it takes, but personally, I don't really want to be in there for longer than like 5 messages back and forth. By that stage, you kind of know, and then just closing it out really nicely, or, inviting them into something.
Yeah. And you mentioned the long game before. Like, another reason why I personally feel conversations are so important is with the long game is when someone starts to get to know you and you build rapport and relationship with them, they might not be in the right season of their life to work with you in that moment. but they're going to see your content more. They're going to have more of a connection with you. And when the season is right, they'll most likely buy from you and you'll be the person that comes up in their mind. Like last night, for example, at like 2 a.m. feeding my daughter, I was actually maybe 10 p.m. I think it was before I went to bed. I was on Instagram scrolling through, saw this woman that I've followed for years and bought her. She's got like this Insta Growth Club thing, this like monthly membership, and I bought it. And she actually asked me, I'm curious to hear like what made you buy it. And I was like, I love that you asked that. And I said to her, like, I've just followed you for ages, got so much value from you for so long. And yeah, like wanted to, just wanted to learn more from you. And we had exchanged messages before. Like I looked up and I was curious. I was like, oh, have we spoken before? And we have before. And I think that does two things. It helps with the algorithm of putting your content in the right people's feed. And also it's just that thing of, the person that you'll think of next. So like for you, for example, if someone's looking for strategy and energetics and like a really kick-ass business coach and you've already had a conversation with them, your content's going to be coming up in their feed and you're going to be the first one they think of if and when they come to the season where they want to invest in a business coach.
And I always come back to like top of mind, top of mind, top of mind. I'm just saying it to my girls like all day, every day. Top of mind, you need to be top of mind. And another cool thing I do is, and even look like as for everyone, like go back and look at the last thing you bought and look at how you bought it. And all the girls who sign up with me, I encourage them to go back to their DMs, scroll up to our first convo, look at what happened and see how they got where they are now working with me, because the chances are it's very high that I had messaged them, that we had had some back and forth, whether it was for 2 days or 2 years. And I feel like that's just such a cool exercise.
It's such a cool exercise, and it actually really highlights something that kind of has nothing to do with conversations, but in a way does, which is just knowing that every effort that you put in is adding to the 10,000 hour rule of becoming an expert in it. So if you've invested like 10,000 hours in relationships and connections and conversations, at some point it's going to pay off for you, right? Like I have the same where the people that are attracted to me to be coached by me in business and do affiliate marketing, they come to me and they're like, I followed you for years. And then I look back and they followed me for like 3 years or something. And it's like, it's never the person that's just started following me. It's the person that's been actively watching me and, the odd responding to each other's stories or whatever, like the odd conversation here and there. And it comes back to like the 10,000 hour rule. And like, yeah, as you said before, the long-term game of knowing that this is not just like an overnight success thing in business. It's business always comes down to relationships.
I love that.
Did you want to add anything that I haven't asked before, or anything just in general with business, not necessarily conversations related?
I feel like something that you just touching on what you just said around how it's all of it together is part of what I heard too. Like it's our 10,000 hours, but it's also like the person on the other end seeing everything come together. And being like, oh, okay, I had a really cool convo with her and I felt really good. Oh, I did a free thing. Oh, I watched her stories. Oh, I watched her feed content. It's so good. And this goes back to that ecosystem comment I made at the beginning. And I feel like this really comes down to when we see it business less as like so cut and dry and we see it more as everything working together, I think it takes the pressure off a little bit. So when we see like, okay, it's not just about my promo post working and someone DMing the word. And if they don't DM the word, no one's buying today. It's like, it's not that simple. It's maybe they'll see a post and reach out. Maybe you'll DM them and it'll work. Maybe they'll see an email because now they're on your email list. And really trusting how your whole business works together.
Which comes back down to energetics, right? Which is why you're so good at what you do as well, is energy doesn't lie. Like you can see through that in a conversation, in content, in a video, in whatever. So yeah, it's such an important element in business, which really isn't probably spoken about enough. Like there's a lot of strategy stuff out there, but the energetics is so important for success, just as important as strategy.
Yeah. And I noticed that a lot of people either go all one way or all the other. They'll be like, it's all strategy, or they'll be like, it's all just doing inner work. And I was like, can it just be both, please? And when we bring both worlds together, we don't get too caught up in one or the other. Because then sometimes I have clients and I'll notice they feel safe in the inner work. So I get them to go take more action. And then others feel safe in the action. So we've got to go and visit the inner work. And knowing which clients which and where we sit and land, I think is just a really, really helpful tool to remember to bring the worlds together to get the results that we desire and allow them to take the time that they need to take.
No, I love that. And so if anyone is interested in learning from you, following you, working with you, where's the best place for them to find you?
What a shocker that it's Instagram. Definitely Instagram. I reply to all my DMs. What a surprise. And I share lots there. And I'm really big on like giving away a lot there as well. Like giving strategy, showing the answers to things. I answer everything. I do lots of lives. So that's definitely the place.
Thank you so much, Adriana. You're an absolute legend. Before we go, I would love to ask you the question I ask everyone. What would you tell your 21-year-old self if you could go in a time machine, go back in time, give her a hug and just tell her what she needed to hear?
Before we wrap up this episode, I want to ask you a question. Do you remember how you discovered this podcast? Was it a friend's suggestion or an Instagram story, maybe a post? Somehow you found it, and I'm hoping you're getting a lot of value from it. I need your help now to pay it forward so that other women can feel seen, heard, nourished, and more than anything, empowered from these conversations too. Big love, back to the episode.
I felt little her sitting in front of me, and I would just say, just keep going. Like when you think you don't have more left in your tank, you do, and just keep at it and keep going. I feel like at every stage of my growth in the last, 10 years, I felt like this is it, this is the end, like how do I get past this bit? And it's that everything passes and to just keep at it, just keep going.
Love that. That's so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom and value. So appreciate it. And guys, make sure that you hit us up, screenshot the podcast or share with us what your biggest takeaway was, because this is such a great topic to really take seriously if you've got an online business. And thank you so much, Adriana, for being here to share it.